Okay, I'm going to do a quick tutorial on how to open people's eyes in Photoshop with photos you have inside Adobe Lightroom. So let's say this is the photo I have and I like this photo, everything about it except the person blinked. The key to doing this successfully and really easily is just taking a bunch of photos and hoping you have a photo with his face exactly same lighting, exactly same angle, but with his eyes open. So I do have that, and if I really needed this photo with his eyes open, I'd grab them, but I want to show you not a picture perfect example. So let's say we have the only other photo, the closest match is something like this. His face is bigger and the colors are slightly different than this one. If you look here, his face is a bit lighter and a bit more warm than on this one. So I would probably try and go inside here, Lightroom, and edit this photo to make his face a bit warmer and lighter so it matches his face here. But I'm not going to make it that easy. Want to show you how to do it if you're not running into an easy situation. So this is how you would go about doing it. Select both the photos, click Command, and then select both the photos. And I think to make that one the bottom layer, make sure it's the first one you select. See, this one has a brighter border around it than this one. Like if I select this one, then this one's going to have a bright border around it. So select that one first, then this one, and then right click and edit in, then open as layers in Photoshop. Now, I might be a little slow at this. I'm not going to be cutting anything. This is going to be a full live speed how I would edit it. So some things might take a little slow. And I was actually wrong. It made that layer the top layer. So you want the main photo. So this is the photo. You want that one to be on the bottom. And there's a way to make it locked. I'm not sure how exactly. Layer, there's a way to lock it so it's the background layer. Lock layers, that's not, maybe that is it. Layer, lock layers. No, cancel, that's not what anyway, I'm just gonna label it background. Actually, I think if I click that lock, now I think that's like, let me try moving it now. Yeah, that's it. Select that layer and click that lock button. You will lock that layer so you can't move it. See, we can't move it now. Now if I select this one, I can move it. But yeah. So now we have that one as the background. Now what I would do to make this working easier, on this photo, I would just cut out his face and delete everything else. So I'm not working with the whole photo because from here, all I need is his eyes. That's all I need to put over top of this face. I don't need any other part of this image. So what I would do is grab the lasso tool and just literally grab that section. Maybe actually grab a little more of the forehead. Yeah, like I was saying, this might take a little longer than usual. I'm not editing the video. I'm going to do the video all live. I'm going to actually make it a bit bigger, like around the edges of the head. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And there's a way to select the image. So right now we have the inside pixel selected. I need to select all the outside pixels. And I believe it's Command-Shift-I. Yeah, there we go. And now click the delete key and you deleted everything but that on this image. So now press Command D to deselect and then the V button to select the move tool. And as you can see, the angle, everything is pretty close match, except it's way bigger. And we're gonna run into some more issues in the future. Like if you had a perfect match, that would be great, but that's not what we have. So first, I'm gonna change this to convert to smart object. So when we make it smaller and then bigger, we are not losing detail. Because if you look right now, let me undo that. Command Z, so it's not a smart object anymore, and I do Command T to transform it, and I make it way smaller, and then enter, and then let's say I want to make it bigger again. Now I do Command T, transform that layer, make it bigger, enter, and so all the detail is lost. So that is a destructive act. So we do not want to do that. So go back to this. So convert it to a smart object. To that way, you whatever you do to it, resize it, turn it, change the angle, anything, you're not going to lose any detail. So now if I do Command T and I resize it, enter, and then resize it again, all the detail is still there, as you can see. So that's what a smart object is for. So okay, now that's why you want that layer locked, because if you don't have it locked and you have the wrong one selected, then you're just going to accidentally boom and move the background, and it becomes very annoying when you do that. So I always lock that bottom layer so nothing is happening to it. And this thing is slightly bothering me. Delete. Aye. Because sorry, it's not directly editable. Okay, I am not gonna have it as a smart object real quick. Gonna delete that section there. That little hair is bothering me there. Delete. There we go. And deselect. I don't know, that's just me. Anyway, convert back to smart object. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we need to match it roughly on top of his eyes and make it so it's about the same size. So what you're gonna do, you have this turned it into a smart object. Now select that layer and click the number 5 on the keyboard with the move tool selected. And that changes the opacity to 50%. You could change it over here, but it's easier just using the keyboard shortcuts. And I do that to roughly so you can see what's under and match up the eyes. So now we have the opacity at 50%. We're gonna change the size by clicking Command T. That means Command Transform. And I try to kind of shimmy it around, get it to match up. And that's why I said like I deleted everything around, because now like we're resizing just this little small section instead of that whole image, and it will be really annoying if you're working with the whole image. And here is how I try to resize. What I'm really aiming at is see the insides of the eyes. Something that or like the eye, the little, I don't know what you call that center dot on the eye. Try to get it so it's exactly the same width on this photo and the photo below it. And that way you're gonna know you're roughly about the right size. So either go by those or the insides of the eyes. So match those up. About right there is a match, and I see this one right here. I still need to make it a bit bigger. So a little bigger yet. Now, we're not going to do a perfect match right now. We're going to match it up even better later down. I'll show you why. So right here, I think we are pretty close. Yeah, I think we are pretty close right there. Okay, so now the way you match up align it is kind of by the eyebrows, the inside of the eye, and over here, because those parts of the eye don't move as much when you open and close it. The part that moves is more this top eyelash, the top of the eye that moves more. So match up the insides here and the eyelashes a bit. So kind of about right there is pretty good. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. And yeah, good to go. Now we're gonna go and select the layer again and and press 0 on the keyboard, and that's gonna change the opacity to 100%. And the reason I chose this picture, because it's not a picture perfect example, you're gonna run into some other issues because it's not a picture perfect example. I'll show you then. But anyway, now what we're gonna do is click this, make sure that's layer selected, and click this button right here. That is the mask layer, and it's gonna turn it white. I think if you click Option, it'll make it black. We need a black, but well, it doesn't matter. Like make sure you have the mask selected and click Command I, and that inverses it to black. Now make sure you have the mask selected, click the brush tool, and I have the brush selector here. The hardness 10%, that is pretty good. Fuzz on the outside, spacing 15%, good. Like that's pretty good. So make sure you have a brush with a good. So the edge is not hard. You want a soft edge. Make a brush with a soft edge. And then over here, you want flow about 20%, something like that. Opacity 100%. What that means, I need to go over the same area about 5 times for the opacity to be 100%. If I had this flow at about 50%, I would have to go over the same area about 2 times for the opacity to become 100%. I believe that's how it works, something like that. So somewhere around 20% is what I like. That's how I work. And then what we're going to do, zoom into the eyes. Make sure you have that mask selected. Make the brush a little smaller with the left and right bracket keys. And you want to, with your paintbrush, draw over this area. And where you're going to smooth it out into the background image is, I'm going to change to the move tool real quick to point, is in this skin area right here, in the eyebrow, in this area right here, and in the skin right here. That is where you're going to smooth it out. Sometimes when the head is turned, you can see the bridge of the eye, nose, it's in the eye. And if that's the case, like you got to be real careful in that section to not move the bridge of the nose. But in our case, his head is almost facing me directly. That's not an issue. But yes, the things to keep in mind. So like you don't want to be ruining the detail of the rest of the photo. So like the rest of his face is all good. We're just updating his eyes and some of the muscles around the eyes. So now we're going to select the brush tool. We selected everything we want. And over here, you can see if it's black or white. If you want it to be white. So on this mask, everything that is white is going to be visible. Everything that is black is not visible. So you select the white to make parts of that image visible. And if you need to erase, just turn it to black and you'll be erasing parts of that image. So we have white. So you can switch it with the X key on your keyboard when you have the brush selected. So I have white selected as my main color, brush color now, and just start drawing over that eye. And you see, like I have to go over the same area a couple times to get it to appear. You want to go a little lower here to get the muscles to all like look natural. Yeah, so something like that. Then do the same thing on this eye. Like everything is live speed. I'm not making anything faster, so bear with me here. So as you can see, now we're already pretty good, but I mean, it's definitely not perfect. So now if I do the before after, that's what we're getting. So you can see the eyes are a bit darker here. They're not quite matching up lighting. That's why you really ideally want to take a bunch of pictures. So the picture you're grabbing, the eyes, the lighting, the size, resolution, everything matches up. But I'm not doing a picture perfect. So for you, possibly you might be almost done. So for you, the last step might possibly be to just make sure align them perfectly. So now I'm at this stage. What I'm going to do is by toggling it on and off, you can kind of fix the alignment. So you can see like when I turn it off and on, the right eye is kind of pretty close aligned. This one is moving left and right a bit. Like you see, when his eyes are closed, this is the original photo, his eye is here, and then when I turn on that one, his eye shifts a little over this way. So that means I made it a little too big. I need to make it a little smaller. So select that layer, not the mask, select the layer and click Command T, transform, and let's make it just a wee bit smaller. Enter. and then click the V tool to move it around with arrow keys. And as you can see, that's a pretty close match there. I think that is going to be good enough for us. If you wanted to be real anal about it, you could spend more time on it. But I think that is pretty good. If we turn off the layer, you can see what is actually going on here. Like, yeah, that's what the mask is doing. But yeah, I think we might actually need to draw in a bit more of that area. So I'm gonna go back to the brush, select the mask again, and make sure white is selected. I'm gonna make the brush a little smaller and draw in a bit more of this area right here. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so something like that, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so for you, this might be it. For you, you might be done with this now. But as you can see now, like the coloring is not matching up. So now what do we do? So now what I'm gonna do with it selected as a smart object, I'm gonna go to this adjustments panel and I'm gonna add a couple things to it. So I'm gonna go to brightness and contrast. So add a brightness contrast layer. And you don't want to do this adjustment to all of these bottom layers. You only want to affect this layer right here. So only these eyes. And the way you do that is when you selected that brightness and contrast adjustment, you select that layer and you're gonna create clipping mask right there. Create clipping mask. And what that does, it affects only the layer below. That's it. So we are taking this brightness and contrast layer and only affecting the layer below, not all the layers. If you don't do that, it's going to affect all the layers. So now when we increase brightness, it's only affecting that layer. So now I'm going to increase brightness just a little bit. You can toggle it on and off to see how it's doing. And that is actually pretty good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. There we go. And I think brightness I am pretty good on. Maybe just here more. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. And I think I need to adjust the temperature just a little bit. So that would be channel, black, white, color balance. And same thing, and it created a clipping mask for me already. I think I want it to be just a little warmer. This is much easier to do in Lightroom than in Photoshop because it has way too many adjustments for you. It's a bit too much. Like, it's very tiny, it's very subtle. But I don't know, I notice things like that. You might not notice. Okay, I think I need more red than yellows. I think that is pretty good. Maybe just a hair less. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that now, the way that looks. So that, I'm actually, just because it's me, I'm going to change the name to eyes of that layer. But okay, now we got a pretty close match. And honestly, that's probably good enough. And one thing I don't like, I think the muscles here don't quite look natural. So I'm gonna actually, I'm gonna erase some of this. So X black. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. So yeah, you see it's a kind of, you're gonna have to play around with it, try to get the colors to match up perfectly to get this looking all natural. And so I was hoping I was going to have another issue, but it doesn't seem like it's much of an issue. So the other issue sometimes you can run into is if you're taking the eyes from a photo that is much bigger than this photo. So you can see this photo, his head is pretty small. If you remember the original photo, I took the eyes were much bigger in that photo. And so another issue you might run into is when you put these eyes on top of this image, what's not going to match up is these eyes are going to be super crisp and the rest of his face is not that crisp and it's very visible. Over here, it's not really that much of an issue. You can't really tell that it's sharper. But so if they were a lot sharper, what I would do is I would take that layer, select it, and then I would go into filter menu and I would add noise. So add noise. And Photoshop is not perfect at this, but like I wish there was a way to change the size of the noise, like grain it adds. Like you can kind of add grain with more like options, like with more ways to kind of change how the grain looks in Lightroom than you do in Photoshop, actually. And I don't know why. Usually Photoshop is more powerful than Lightroom. But anyway, so I would add just like a tiny bit of grain, like maybe 0.2, point or 0.3. Kind of play around with it. Maybe 0.4. One, I think that's a bit too much, like 0.8. 0.8 grain, okay. And as you can see, it makes it look a bit more coarse. So also make sure you have a monochromatic selected. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of coloring like red and like see that coloring. And if you do monochrome, then it makes it black and white. But yeah, 0.8. I'm pretty happy with that. And so depending on what your image is looking like, you might have this a bit differently. Then I'm going to do OK. And since we have this as a smart layer, it adds this as a smart filter. And then when you double click on add noise, you can readjust it. If you don't have this as a smart layer, you won't be able to readjust that. So now if you really look closely, it looks a bit more coarse than that one. So then with the add noise, I would also add another filter. I would add a blur, and I use Gaussian blur. There it is, Gaussian blur. And that one also very tiny bit, like 0.5. So very subtle. So maybe even less, 0.2, 0.3. I think okay. And I think that's about good. I think maybe even 0.2. It's not much difference, but anyway, I just showed you that is how I sometimes match up the texture, so your eyes are not super sharp compared to the rest of the photo. Like You see, oh, those are kind of the tools you have available for you in Photoshop. You might have to play around. Maybe other people do it differently. That is the way I do it. That's the way I found it works for me. I've done images where nobody could ever tell that I opened anything. Everything looks natural and beautiful. But yeah, that is how you open people's eyes in Photoshop, my friends. I'll show you a big example. I think if I double click, nope. There's a way to make this go to like full screen, but anyway, let's see the before and after. So we have this image here. There's a before, after, ta-da. But yeah, hope this was helpful for somebody. But yeah, if you have any questions, I guess hit me up in the comments or whatever. Hopefully it was helpful for somebody.